Okay, so it's live. Hi everyone.
Yay!
Hi everyone. Welcome. I'm so happy to be with Lian. Um, I'm sure most of the people know about Lian.
Oh,
Somehow, I got to know about Lian due to karaoke, DevOps, cloud native, a lot of amazing stuff. And huge shout out to Lian. Thank you so much for giving your time. Would you like to tell
absolutely
your viewers?
welcome.
Would you like to tell your viewers about a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Lian Li. I'm a developer advocate for Loft Labs at the moment. We build developer tooling for Kubernetes. So yeah, I do like to talk about myself a lot, and I do have like kind of like my life story in a nice little neat package. So I've been in tech for a bit over 10 years now. I started, my first job in tech was in support. So I was studying at the University of Hamburg. I'm from Germany, and I was studying actually law. But I was always interested in computers. Like when I was 12, I built my first website with HTML. I started like stealing JavaScript snippets from the web and just experimenting with it a little bit. And then while I was at university, I was also like half days doing support work for a like games company in Hamburg, a very small one, startup, 10 people, 8 people, something like that. And then I decided to not continue with my studies. And instead, I was like, hey, let's do something maybe more practical, something less dry. So I had a couple of friends who worked at another games company in Hamburg, and they got me a job in QA. So I was working in QA for maybe 7 months or so. And then I started an apprenticeship in Germany. And that was in software development. And the way that it works in Germany is that you basically spend all your time working, and then every 2 months or 3 months, you go to school for 6 weeks. School it was not that interesting because most of the stuff that you learn, you actually learn on the job. So I did my apprenticeship. I'm now a certified software developer. Um, and yeah, I was a software developer, web mainly. So I started out in backend. I learned PHP. That was the first language. Then I moved to front end. Then I moved back to backend, like was doing a little bit of full stack. Then I started going into DevOps. And that was mainly because I was working for a company that had like a build your own website by clicking stuff and moving stuff around in the browser. And they had on call, and everything was running kind of like on the machines themselves. We didn't have containers back then. They needed people to be on call. And to me, that was just a chance to make more money, because you work more, and then also we get like a higher hourly rate because it's on the Sundays or weekends or holidays. And that's how I kind of got into DevOps for money. And I feel like that's maybe what a lot of people are still doing. Um, and I was really interested in public speaking at the time. I started that when I was still doing JavaScript, and I then kind of that whole thing ended, and I kind of decided I wanted to change. I wanted to move out of Germany, just like see what's out there. And like I had the chance to work for a cloud native consultancy in Amsterdam, where I live right now. And when I started, I had no idea about Kubernetes. I didn't know what it was. I knew about containers. I have used them once or twice, but never in production. And they hired me as a software engineer at first, and then I slowly kind of like moved to cloud native transformation, all of that. Spent a long time at that company. I became an engineering manager there as well for a year, and this is something that we can probably talk about later. Then I burned out. This was during Corona. Really tough time for all of us, and I burned out really badly. I just didn't work for like half a year maybe. And after that, I decided that I'm ready now for the big job, and I want to do like DevRel and help developers directly, because I felt like this is what I've been doing for a long time as a consultant as well. So long story short, joined Loft as a DevRel, and here I am now. That was like about 5 minutes.
That's amazing, Liana. I think you did a lot of. I mean, you did switch into a lot of
I did.
roles, and you have like a like overview of a lot of things, and that's why I think it's somewhere it just fits into DevOps because DevOps, I think it depends. Like what is DevOps to you? I'm gonna come back to you, but later. But DevOps, some people say that DevOps is about culture. It's about making a culture throughout the organization. So yeah, we're gonna talk about it more. But yeah, about me, like I really loved DevOps like since the start. Like I started contributing to open source in the pipelines, making pipelines for the hardware projects, and I also did switch to backend like you did, to backend, a little bit of front end, and then again came back to DevOps. So I guess that's what I loved the most, wherever I, after exploring a lot of things. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and about the burnout as well, I totally agree. Like the corona was really a bad time,
Mm.
and we should definitely talk about burnout as well. Like
Damn,
yeah,
we
I
can talk
mean,
about so many things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but like starting, like, what is DevOps to you, Lian? Like, what's your definition of DevOps?
Yeah, give me the big question first. Um, so probably easier to say what DevOps is not. Like, it's not a job title. It's not like we used to. When I first heard of the word DevOps, and like from the people who kind of mentored me and taught me everything that I know today, more or less everything that I know today about DevOps, they always said DevOps is an anti-pattern. So a pattern is something that's supposed to help you solve a problem, and an anti-pattern is something that seems like it would solve your problem, but it doesn't actually. And I didn't understand it at that time because I wasn't senior enough, I guess. But now I'm seeing what they meant. So to me, DevOps is almost like a tag. It's a group of different things. It can be teams, it can be processes, it can be structures, it can be tools, it can be just like a philosophy of thinking. That to me is DevOps. A lot of it is based on collaboration and understanding what are the things that come before and come after you. So originally the idea was you build it, you run it. That was the original idea. Like you write your code, you need to understand how it's going to live on a server so you can optimize the code in a way that it makes it easier or less of a hassle, whatever, less brittle when it runs in production. That is the original idea. And it was just like DevOps is everything that can help us solve this problem. So yeah, I don't know. I feel, but also I feel like once you're in this industry, there's no point in, um, like branding these things anymore because it's just what we do. I mean, am I DevOps? Am I in platform engineering and I'm SRE? It doesn't really matter. It matters what you do, and we all kind of solve like similar problems. So I don't think it's super important. If you're coming from the outside, if you're a student or you're just like looking for a new career, then I guess it can be quite confusing because everyone's talking about DevOps or DevOps is dead and now we're doing something else. But in the end, I feel like, and that bleeds through the entire culture of DevOps, it's about collaboration and it's about taking care of what comes after or before your own work. So you can like optimize that to, better collaborate with your colleagues.
Definitely. So it's about like helping your colleagues and maybe providing a good experience. Like good developer experience. Maybe we can say it. Do you mean that,
I
Lian?
think so.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it depends. Like, it's usually when we spoke about DevOps in the past, it was mainly developers going into ops and not necessarily ops going into development.
yeah,
So I think DevOps was not a great developer experience for most because suddenly they had to like, as a developer, you suddenly had to understand, I don't know, kernel architecture or,
yeah.
just infrastructure as a whole, how to provision a server and all of that. I mean, I was on call for, I don't know, maybe half a year, and I barely understood any of the things that I was supposed to do. I just knew that if this breaks, click this button or run the script, and then,
Mhm.
something will happen and it will work. So I I doubt that I was actually doing DevOps, but I think it counts. I was probably doing DevOps, but I didn't really understand what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah. I think this happened with me in first job, like the way you described. I was just clicking, and I knew that okay, I need to, I need to fix this cluster. I need to fix this port. I need to delete it. But why are we doing it? Because that's my question, and I think I'm still confused. I mean, because when we talk about DevOps, and I'm still confused, because when we talk about DevOps and on call, do you think like you really need to be good at understanding the architecture, like what's going
Mm,
on within those microservices? Because as a DevOps person, I know that we have to take care of CI/CD pipelines, the infrastructure, Kubernetes, AWS, or whatsoever you have. But do you think like we also need a deeper understanding of software architecture, like those microservices? I'm still
I don't
confused.
think you have to. I don't think you have to. I mean, like the whole point, and I guess this is what the platform engineering is trying to do,
Yeah,
is to the DevOps was kind of the idea. Let's mix it all up. Let's like everyone does everything. And now we're at a point where this is clearly not working because it's gotten so complex. And if you as a developer need to also understand everything about Kubernetes, like how will you be able to really focus and optimize, your code and like understanding, I don't know, expecting from, let's say, a front-end engineer who works with React or something, expecting them to understand to set the right resource quotas in Kubernetes. I don't think that makes any sense.
yeah,
Um, and vice versa, I wouldn't expect that from, like a platform administrator to understand, which components to use in your WASM thing or whatever. So I generally think no. However, I believe that the key is to provide the right contracts, the right APIs, so we can work together. If I'm a developer, you're a DevOps, or you're an ops person, we need to have the same language on, the point where we meet, right? So let's say you need to tell me what you need from me. Let's say I need you to open a port on this, like I need you to open this port. I need you to run your web server on this port so I know that I can open it. And you have to have
yeah,
these security measures in place. Don't tell me what exactly I need to do, but tell me what you need from me. And then I tell you what I need from you. And we work on that. And everything besides that, you don't have to care about. It's not
yeah.
your job and it shouldn't be your job.
Yeah, I think the whole idea was abstracting out and, as you mentioned, like collaborating with each other. And I think DevOps come in that place where we are helping out developers to focus on their own. I mean, the code which they're developing, and we need to have a
Mhm.
collaborative. We need to have an idea about the APIs, about the things, and need to make sure that things are running, and we are able to help
Yeah.
everyone. I guess. Yeah, we can
I,
say
I
that.
think that is the attraction of DevOps, probably, is that
Yeah,
it is kind of on the edge of operations and development, and there are so many interesting things that happen in there where we talk about team, like organizational structures and leadership, and it's no surprise that these kinds of conversations happen in this space, because this is, as we said, all about collaboration, understanding each other, seeing how we can optimize kind of the
hmm,
human side of software and delivering software. So that's what
yeah,
I find most fascinating. I haven't been an engineer in like 5, 6 years or so, but I still find it fascinating just to use all the skills that I have to solve these kinds of like interpersonal
yeah,
problems, but in a technical way.
yeah. Makes sense. So I think moving forward with this, Lian, like because
Mhm.
I think if someone would have told me when I was starting my own journey, how to get started with DevOps, or so what would you recommend to someone who is because we all know that DevOps is a buzzword and people just hear
Mhm.
about DevOps and then they're like, okay, let's do DevOps, let's become
Yeah,
DevOps engineer. But what do you
yeah.
suggest to someone who they hear about this word, and what do you
Mhm.
suggest? Like, first of all, how should they know that okay, this is something you really need to proceed with,
Mhm.
and if they know that okay, this is something which I want to do, then how should they get started? Yeah,
So I guess it really depends on what the thing is that is most interesting to you about DevOps. So like for me, it was just the money originally. So just like do whatever, the money tells you to do, I guess. Some people are really want to get into the community aspect of it. If you're interested in that, if you know some people, maybe you see like there seems to be a fun group of people, then I would recommend to just go to some community meetings. Go to Meetup. There's a bunch of them online also, but there might also be some in your area that you can visit, and just like go there, see what's what, like what's the vibe, what are the people like, what do they talk about, what are they interested in. And you don't need like technical knowledge to just like go and meet people, right? So that's something that you could start with if this is what you want. If you're already an engineer, let's say if you're already a software developer, and you're just interested going into DevOps, I think if you can focus on what's your experience when you have to deliver software, whenever you get into contact with infrastructure and operations, you could create some content around it, write blog posts, Twitter, give some talks if that's what you want to do. Like, again, this is like a community aspect thing. Like if you want to make a mark, or like have people notice you, then writing about your own experiences, even if you don't have a lot, I think that's really helpful. With finding a job, I mean, right now it's difficult for everyone. But I think if you can show that you've been contributing to stuff, be it writing blog posts, for example, or maybe you even contribute to open source projects that are related to DevOps, specifically in the Kubernetes space, or look at the CNCF landscape, the nightmare that is the CNCF landscape, and see if there are any projects that you find interesting, maybe that you've used. And you can contribute in a lot of different ways. Like, you can obviously contribute code, you can help with the docs, you can just go to, like, I just recently joined the TAG, which is the Technical Advisory Group. So the CNCF, maybe I take two steps back. The CNCF is an organization, I think that it was originally the part of the Linux Foundation. It's the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and they are kind of the organization behind KubeCon. They hold all the rights to Kubernetes and a bunch of other open source projects, and they're kind of like the industry guide to like what's the proper, or what is the best way, in our opinion, to deliver software. Like, that now they're pushing GitOps, and then they say like, these are products that can help you with your GitOps stuff. So they have technical advisory groups, and I just recently joined the app delivery group because I'm very interested in CI/CD and how to make developers more efficient and happy when they need to deliver stuff to a Kubernetes cluster. And I just started going into the meetings because I just wanted to see like, what do they talk about, where do they need help with. And I immediately helped because they needed someone to be responsible for something. They didn't need you to actually, so we were writing a white paper, and they just needed people to be responsible for a section, just to make sure that if people have suggestions, we will edit it and we will get it through in time. Like, I wasn't asked to actually provide any content. I was basically just asked to like help with the edits. And so I helped, and it wasn't like hard because it didn't require a lot of technical knowledge from me. But that was the first step for me to like get into the community, do something that I'm really interested in. And especially if you join like a technical advisory group, you're like right at the core of it, right? You will help define like best practices, and you can really make a huge impact on the industry if you like, just help write a white paper, for example. So that was a long rant. Yeah, as I said, it really depends on what exactly you're interested in, but I feel like just get yourself out there, like build your own brand. I know that it sounds kind of not nice to a lot of people because it sounds very marketing salesy. But the fact of the matter is, nowadays, especially since Corona and now we're like all remote, everyone's kind of their own island now. Everyone's kind of like has their own brand, their own thing. And when if you work somewhere, if you want to change your employer or anything like that, you need to be able to present your strengths. So if you are aware of your strengths, if I'm just a very good communicator, or I'm very good at, I don't know, Kubernetes, whatever it is, as long as you're aware, you can capitalize on it, and you can present that part of you, and can do DevOps or whatever you're interested in.
Wow, I mean, Wow. I needed to hear this, honestly, and I feel like
Welcome.
whatever you described is so great. I mean, nobody explained it in such easier words that we are in remote islands, and that makes sense because that's the only way to communicate. I mean, we connected in the same way, I guess, like community and
Yeah.
Discord. I saw you on Twitter. So yeah, that's how we connected. Also, I would love to add this, Lian, because I totally agree with you what you mentioned about open source. I think open source is a great way to explore everything. Like if you want to explore Android, just go and contribute to even the documentation, or just go and see like what's happening. Like I would love to mention about me. Like I contributed to a project where I had to build CI/CD pipelines, and they were using Jenkins as a CI/CD platform. So I also had to write the libraries, and even Jenkins
Awesome.
has really wonderful projects to have plugins, like all the plugins which we use. So so yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's where I got to know that why do we even. And the best part about open source is that it's free, people are helpful, collaborative, and you get to see the scale. So many people are using it. And
Yeah,
I mean, let's talk about Jenkins. I mean, so many people are using it, so many organizations are using it, and it's open
for
source.
sure. For
So,
sure.
and the Kubernetes
And
as well.
people
Yeah,
who work on open source are also generally very passionate, like they will always,
yeah,
they just want to help. They want to be part of something bigger, and they don't expect anything from it besides just their own satisfaction of helping. And that's just a great group of people to be around. So when KubeCon happens and you finally get to meet the people that you've been working with all year, that's just an amazing thing.
yeah,
I think someone has a
yeah,
question. Oh,
yeah. And that, oh, someone has a question. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So Kelvin asked, I have knowledge about some tools like Docker, Kubernetes, Git, GitHub, Linux, Go. Oh my God, that's too
That's
much.
more than I know.
That's really good, actually. Yeah. Computer networking. So is it enough to get a job, or I have to make multiple projects
I can't
after
tell you. I
maybe to
mean,
get a job? Yeah, that's what I mean.
you can probably get a job with this. I mean, I got a job with like no knowledge of any of that. Well, I knew GitHub and Git
Yeah,
and Docker. You can. I mean,
yeah,
it depends on what kind of job you want, right? Like, there's a bunch of, if you okay to work for some blockchain company because they're looking a lot right now, you could find a job with that with those
I agree.
credentials probably. Um, yeah, as I said, I think unfortunately in this industry the easiest way to get a job is to know the right people still. This is just, it's probably human nature also, but this is just the way that this industry unfortunately still works. So again, I would recommend to go into the communities that are close to you and make some connections. Tell people what you're interested about, and then ask other people what they're doing. Maybe there are some companies that you find interesting. Is there a way for you that you could reach out to individual people in that company? Maybe ask them like, "Hey, I saw your talk, and I was wondering if we could talk about this," or "Hey, I'm interested in what you do. I was wondering if I could write a blog post about it." You just like start easy and don't force too much on it, because if you speak to people like Kelsey Hightower, obviously he's getting a lot of requests. So like you could offer some free labor first, which I generally I don't really advertise to do that, but it will get your foot into the door. Like if you're a known person, I mean, I, okay, so I don't agree with this. I think it's not great, but like I haven't had like a really hard interview in a long time because people tend to know me. So last time I switched jobs was basically, hey, I know you were working for a competitor. We definitely want you because you have all the experience that we need. Like you've done the same job in the same space already. And, people will just trust that you know what you're doing, and you're not going to have like a
Exactly.
really hard interview anymore. So if anything that you can show is good. Not saying that you have to, but if you have it, if you have more than it's needed, it will also show that you are just really passionate about this topic in general. It's not just a job for you,
Yeah,
which companies find very attractive.
Yeah. You know what? So I'm gonna describe my experience of my first job.
Mhm.
I so much agree with you. How did I get it? Because I was already. I'm just gonna put this question because it's relevant. The answer. So I
Yeah.
was already contributing to open source, and I saw a job posting. It just had a, and I really loved the job description. They didn't want a person to know everything, but they wanted someone to know about CI/CD, someone who has worked with Jenkins, someone who knows a little bit of Python scripting. So I was like, okay, this is so cool, and I'm gonna just apply. And I'll be very honest, like in India, it's kind of tough because the competition is huge. So at that moment I was lost. I mean, I was like,
Mm.
how to apply, how to get a job. And at that moment I just went through my, my gut feeling that, okay, let's just ping this person who has posted the job description.
Mhm.
So I just reached out to on LinkedIn, and I just mentioned that, hey, he was my manager and the best manager ever till now. So I just told him that, hey, I've worked with this open source project, and I think I have the experience, and I would love to know more. I would love to,
Yeah.
work on a
Yeah.
bigger scale. And he genuinely trusted me because he could see my work. So the
Yeah.
thing which you mentioned, that it's good to do a free labor, I think it's because it's the human nature to trust someone if they have seen your work and if
Of
they
course.
know
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so I think it
Yes.
makes
Yes.
sense to, yeah, put yourself out because it's the human nature. They trust if they are able to see your work, or if they have worked with you. And yeah, I mean, even reaching out to folks like this also helps. So
Yeah.
Kelvin,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can just try. I mean, whatever you know, maybe you can just try reaching out to people in the community, as Lian mentioned.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A lot of companies also don't hire exclusively for the things that you already know, but like the potential that you have. If you can show that you have drive and you really, you're a quick learner or something like that, if this is just things, and definitely always put your best foot forward, right? There was one more thing that I wanted to say, but I completely forgot it, so can't be that. Oh, don't like it's I've received a couple of messages that were just like, "Hey, can you find me get a job?" Literally just the one message. "Hi, I'm whatever my name is. Can you help me find a job?" I mean, I probably can, but I'm not gonna. Like there's a lot of people messaging me. So number one thing is, if you want something from someone else and you're complete strangers, maybe you need to offer them something in return. Like, why would a complete stranger just do stuff for you? This is
Yeah.
emotional labor. It's like, I have limited time. I only have 24 hours in my day either. So yeah, just like if you can offer something in return first, like I want to like write a blog post about this, could you like help me with it or something, then
Yeah.
I think that you'll have better chances with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Kelvin says that, thank you for giving this answer. This
Yeah, you
wonderful.
don't need to doubt yourself, right? There's people from all levels of skills and knowledge, and like there's nothing wrong with you just because you don't know everything about whatever Helm charts or whatever. Like it's just like your focus is on something else. Like you obviously know more about network engineering than I probably have ever known in my life. So that's totally okay. You don't have to hide that fact. You don't have to hide that you don't know that, but you can be completely honest that, I don't know a lot about it yet. I'm really looking forward to learning more. I was hoping that maybe if I can join your company, then I could get some space to learn about this because I learn on the job, like that's what I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And generally, like, some people agree with it. I mean, I've tried this, that, hey, I did not know this, but I have a potential, and they seem to trust. I mean, some
Yeah.
people, they trust. Yeah, so it's
Yes. Yes.
definitely, you should. I mean, I think the one thing which happens is, like, people, they overthink, and then they just don't apply. I mean, that's self rejection, I guess. They self reject
Yeah.
before. I have done that multiple times, but I've stopped doing it now. I'm
Yes.
like, I just apply everywhere wherever I
I
feel it's
A
yeah.
hundred percent. You should. You should. Like the worst thing that could happen is that they say no, and then you're exactly where you were before. Like you've lost nothing, and you could be
Yeah.
surprised. Like when I was working in the consultancy and they were hiring a CTO from inside the company, and I had no leadership experience, but I applied because I thought, like, why not? I mean, this is a chance, so why not apply? And in the end, I was like, under the final two candidates. I didn't get it, but that was such a boost for me that I was like, okay, this is definitely something. If you give me a couple of years, I could do that. And literally, I did the interviews just because I wanted to get some feedback, just because I wanted people to tell me, like, you need to improve here and there. And that was super helpful. I mean, if you're doing like a normal interview process, a lot of times they won't give you any feedback. They just ghost you and never talk to you again. But again, it's not, you're not losing anything, right? So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
just go
And I
for
think
it. And when they reject you, ask for feedback. Or just ask like, hey, can you maybe give me some feedback on what I could do better, or like what you would have liked?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I definitely agree. Feedback just helps you to, and I think don't take feedbacks personally. I mean, a lot of folks they take feedback personally. It doesn't make sense to take it personally. Um, yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, obviously,
especially
feedback is personal to you, but just because someone says something about you doesn't mean that you have to agree. You could just take the feedback and be like, I just don't think that's true, and just leave it, right? Like they don't know you.
exactly. Yeah. So, Kelvin says, thank you, Lian, for such a wonderful.
Thank you for the question,
Um,
Calvin.
Awesome, awesome. So, yeah. So I have one. Do we have more questions? Don't stress. Okay, someone says, don't stress yourself out in your professional life. There will be lots of people happily do it for you.
Like stressing you out, you mean? Okay. This is someone
Yeah.
I know very well because he's like downstairs right now. That's my husband.
Okay.
Nice of you to tune in.
Yeah, but by the way, I do stress out a lot. Like sometimes in my professional life, I'm trying to get better in it, but it happens. What do you do? I mean,
I am
it's a
constantly
genuine.
stressed.
I,
Um, so when I was burned out, I went to the doctors, and then I did an ADHD screening, and it turns out I have ADHD. And suddenly, a lot of things made so much sense to me because I work in bursts. Like right now, for example, I have like a creative burst, and I will work 12-hour days, and I don't feel tired because I love it so much. And then, like in 2 or 3 months, I just work like 4 hours, maybe even. So it's not very healthy, but this is the best way for me to work, where I feel like really fulfilled and happy, like that, like really in the zone, in the flow. Other than that, I do have a bunch of hobbies that force me to be in the moment. So I play a couple of instruments. I do a lot of like garment construction, so like knitting and sewing. I did a bunch of like um, I've created a bunch of clothes, for like tech events, for example. And so that's stuff that I like. And it really, as I said, it forces me to be in the moment, like exercise also. And it just gives me like good habits. And I recognize now that, when I start feeling kind of depressed or down, I just lose the motivation to do all those things that I know are good for me, like exercise. And I'm starting to I'm trying to create that habit that no matter what, I will do these things because they also help me feel better. But ultimately, if you are maybe thinking that you're burning out, if you're maybe like super stressed out about your job, like the one thing that burns you out is if you do something that you don't like. If you go to a job that you don't like 8 hours a day, and I realized that I was burned out, or I was burning out, when I like sat on the bed crying in the mornings because I had to work and I didn't want to. I was just so empty. And that's when I realized, like, hey, this is things that I used to love, I now hate. Like I dread like community work. I love that. But then when I was burned out, it was just I couldn't even think about it without crying. So don't push yourself that far, right? If you're starting to notice like this is not giving me the energy that it used to, then take a break, do something completely different, maybe for a while, disconnect, and just come back later.
yeah,
Don't push yourself.
yeah. I mean, that's thank you so much for being so honest, Lian, because no, like people don't talk about it, but these things are real and it does affect your work as well. So, I mean, like maintaining a balance maybe is super important, and even if you're working, so yeah, I
Yeah.
mean
And
that's
balance is different for everyone, right? Like some people are great at just working 8 hours and then taking a break and spending time with their family. And for me, it's more like in months. Like I will work very hard right now, and then I'll take a bit of a break next month. I hope my boss doesn't see this because he'll be like, "Oh wait, you're not gonna work after KubeCon? What's up?" But like, I think this is obviously also dependent on what kind of company you work for. If you work for like a big enterprise organization, they're probably not as lenient, that they'd be like, "Oh yeah, cool, just like chill for a couple of months, it's gonna be fine." But if you can find a place that can accommodate that a bit, that knows that, we're human, we can't. It's not like
Yeah.
we've been born to work 8 hours a day for 5 days a week, right? This is something that capitalists just decided one day that this is what we're going to do. But not, you can't always be productive, and then also get, like, cut yourself some slack there. So for me, it's like when my depression starts, I always feel super lazy, because usually I'm very driven in my work. But then when I get into these phases, um, I start, like, I just don't have the energy, and I don't want to do things, and I just sit in front of my computer and just like scroll through Twitter all day, and I just feel super lazy, and I start to like beat myself up for not being productive. And now I'm like starting to realize this is not actually my fault, because I know I'm not lazy. I know that I can work hard, and I do work hard. But right now it's just that like physically I'm not capable of doing it. Like mentally, like your brain is part of your body, so it's all
Yeah.
physical, and that's okay. And you just cut yourself some slack, take a break, come back later, or talk to someone about, like, this is not working out for me. And just don't be too hard on yourself. I'm sure most people are too hard on themselves.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, I think the biggest thing is accepting it. I mean, because I think for most of the people it takes, because for me it took me long to accept that it's okay. It's okay to feel lazy, or it's okay to feel low some days. And I feel like when
Yeah,
you accept it, then you know that okay, actually then you recover kind of, or maybe you get
yeah,
into that uh
yeah, yeah,
high performance or something very fast. So I think accepting is definitely it helps. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think we did talk about this a lot, and it's super important as well. But coming back to the topic, Lian, like, what do you think, what are the skills required to become a DevOps engineer if somebody wants to be into that? And I'm sure it differs, because we have already talked with Kelvin, like, just go with the job description. But yeah, what do you
Hmm.
think? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. Once again, do you want to be a DevOps engineer, an SRE, platform engineer? I still don't know what the difference is, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably like 20K in salary. That's probably the difference. But so, some general knowledge, some basic knowledge on both sides are very, very helpful. So understanding, when I write code, or when anyone writes code, it needs to be deployed somewhere on a server where it needs to run, and we need to manage the life cycle of that application from first deployment to when we tear it down because we want to deploy a new version, for example. So need some basic understanding of what are the things that need to happen for this to
Yeah.
work. And you don't need to go super deep into this, but you just need to know about it, because that's most of what DevOps is. And depending on whether you want to go into Kubernetes, for example, which is probably the biggest area right now, there's a lot of money in it. So even though there's a lot of layoffs at the moment, there's still companies hiring also. And you could, you know, as I said, again, look at some projects that you might find interesting, like maybe some open source tools out there. Most open source tools are backed by companies that make money. So you
Yeah.
could, if you're contributing to an open source tool like vCluster, DevSpace, those are two of the ones that my company maintains, then there could be a way for you to, like,
Yeah,
like
I
talk
hope
to
I
employees
hope your
and
manager
again.
hears this. I'm sorry to interrupt. I hope your manager
Exactly.
hears this part.
So the
Yeah,
immediate
yeah,
race, please. Yeah, no, but again, it's the easiest way is just to know people, and have them know you. I think that's even more important. Um, okay, so this is something that I don't know if people say that, but like the most important skill in any job is like people skills. communication, super important. Like you need to be able to express what you want and what you need to other people. So it's not just talking, it's also being able to translate what's going on in your head in a way that other people can understand it. It sounds trivial, but it's not. Like I've spent a lot of time at consultancies with people who are just not, I would ask them like 20 different questions trying to get at what they want from me, but they just couldn't express that because they were only focused in their own brain and how their own brain works. So communication, empathy, especially in DevOps, understanding the developer has shit going on. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say that word, but the developers have stuff going on as well, and they have stuff to focus on, and they have their own pressure. And they're not doing these things because they hate you or they don't care about you. It's just that they have stuff going on. So you
Yeah.
need to have a little bit of empathy, because you would probably also like it if they have empathy towards you, if you are not doing things that they would love. I think those are the two most important skills from my perspective for really any kind of person, but specifically like in DevOps for sure.
DevOps. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, that's really wonderful because no one like talks about the people skills and empathy. But yeah, you're right. Like I think as a DevOps engineer, it's super important to understand like the pains of developer or what they are going through, so that you can come up with solutions. You can come up with something which is going to help them. Yeah, because I remember like I had this situation where every services were deployed on microservices, and people were having hard time with the CI/CD we had that at that moment. So we just moved to Tecton. I'm not sure how is it doing now, but we just gave it a try. Okay, let's try Tecton. It's going to be Kubernetes native. So obviously, developer they when they're focusing on like building APIs and stuff, they don't have time for doing this, even the
Yeah.
experimenting part. So there, maybe we can come and we can help them. So
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely,
for sure.
this
So if
sounds
you're
good.
going into something like platform engineering, there's a big move towards like productizing that. So when you're building a platform for developers, even more it becomes like you are now a product team. You're not just like
Okay.
doing infrastructure for yourselves or like the way that you think it should be done, but now you're supposed to build something that other people are using. So now you really need to understand what are their pain points. And
Mhm.
maybe that's not something that you struggle with because for whatever reason you're just a different kind of person. But it's not about you, right? You're providing a service to other people. So now you need to really understand that and like learn to listen and all of those things. It's tough. Like being a good listener, really understanding, going deeper, asking the right questions. That is a whole separate skill that you can learn and get better at.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, Leon, like, what were the most challenging or maybe a good incident, what you have faced till now in as a part of DevOps team or in the same culture, DevOps
Yeah,
culture?
I
Yeah.
I don't know if there's such a thing as a good incident. Um, I have a funny story, which is that we were using PagerDuty at that time, and I was on call, but I kind of forgot about it. And I was living in Germany, and in Germany, all stores are closed on Sunday, so I had to take my bike to the airport to buy something. And while I was in the airport, I got the notification that my on-call is starting right now. I'm like, oh
Oh,
fuck, I need to get home. And then I got stuck in the revolving door. I was just like literally in the door when I got the message, and then the door stopped for like a full minute. I'm like, fuck, I'm stuck in this elevator at the airport now. But nothing happened. Nothing happened during the entire on-call time, but I just
okay.
forgot. But this is just a funny story. What are the most challenging things? That's a good question. I feel like, again, the most challenging things is really the understanding people and building things for people.
Yeah,
Like like a big project that I worked on at the consultancy
yeah.
was building a new, basically GitOps developer platform for them. So this was like a really big customer, like banking IT, so it's very regulated. And they had like a new project. Everything was greenfield. They were going to use Kubernetes. They were going to use OpenShift actually, and they wanted us to help them kind of come up with like a CI/CD pipeline. And it was built with Jenkins actually. And we built this thing, and then realized that no one was using it because
Yeah.
people were scared to do CI/CD. People were really scared to push something themselves, and it goes to production immediately, or more or less automatically, at
Was
least
it like
without
continuous delivery?
any.
It,
Sorry.
it was like continuous. So was it like
Yes.
continuous delivery? Like you just push? Okay,
Yes,
okay,
that was the idea. The idea, first of all, we had to ask them to only build microservices now. Like they came from a world where they had 562 Java modules banked together in one big application, and someone was like, had a spreadsheet where they were like manually keeping track of the versions of each of those modules. And like one person, when they were releasing, had to like go through the list and then manually check are the versions correct and then deploy that version on a bare metal server. So there was a lot of stuff that they needed to change and needed to learn, like writing microservices, containerizing their applications, using Kubernetes, CI/CD. And we just realized there were like a handful of people using it. There were like 30 people out of 400 who were actually using the pipeline. So then we started thinking about maybe we shouldn't have built like the perfect CI/CD pipeline. Maybe we should have first talked to the people and asked them like, what is it that you need? Like, what would you like to work with? Because in the end, you can build like the best thing ever. If no one's using it, it's kind of useless.
yeah,
So we realized then that people were just too scared, and they wanted those manual checks. They wanted to click on a
yeah,
button and say, yeah, I looked at it, it's okay. And we gave that to them, which I think was a big mistake. Instead, we should have not conceded to that. Instead, we should have done more on education and like really like sat down with them and do stuff together, because then building in that manual check was a step backwards, and I don't think we should have done that. I think we should have, like when you have a bug in production and you're doing CI/CD, you're not supposed to roll back, you're supposed to fix forward, right? You should
yeah,
always go
yeah.
forward. So I think, yeah, the biggest challenge to me is always like you build something nice and then people.
People are not using it.
Yeah. I think it's a German general von Moltke who says like there's no plan that will survive first contact with the enemy. That's very true.
Mm, wow. I mean, I didn't think this way, but you're right. Like, telling people to actually use it is tough. And but what do you think? Like, what you could have done? You have already mentioned that maybe educating them, you could have done better. But do you really think like by because even I'm scared of pushing anything, of fixing things in production. And
How
today
often
itself,
do you deploy then? How
yeah,
often do you deploy?
yeah, I mean, it also depends on how often do you deploy.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you
like it depends on organization. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
it
but
depends on organization.
if you use something every day, 3 times a day, and it only fails once a month, then you'll
Yeah,
start trusting it, right? And I
yeah,
think it's more of like a question of like people trust humans more than machines for good reasons. I mean, we see the same
yeah,
thing now with AI, where it's like, oh, I would rather not have an AI do that for me. But when you get used to it, when you use it a lot, and then you start noticing, actually, humans are really shit at these things. Like testing everything, like making sure that all your features still work. Write automated tests for that, because a human will never be able to do this on the same level as your test code.
hmm,
If your tests are flaky and they're not giving you the right answer, then you have to fix the test. It's not a
yeah,
solution to then use humans. Humans are too expensive, right? Like
yeah,
everywhere you go, HR, like salaries are always the highest cost in every organization. So just use machines for that.
yeah, yeah. So it's a big deal actually to make the teams understand that it's going to be useful. But I guess like as you mentioned, by educating them, that's the way. I'm going to keep that in
Educating,
mind.
and then also you can like sit down with them and do stuff together, right? Like you can
Yeah.
show them this is how it works under the hood. So sometimes people just are scared of things that they don't understand very well.
Hmm.
And they might, again, like trust is built through experience also. So if you just like deploy twice with them, so they know that if something breaks, you're there to help them immediately. And then
Hmm.
you do this a couple of times and they're like, oh, okay, this works really nice. Because in the end, the sales pitch is this is better. CI/CD is better than manually pushing stuff
Hmm.
somewhere. So,
Yeah.
and they will notice that. If it's really better, they will notice. You just have to get them over the first initial kind of steps.
Mhm.
That's the same
Wow.
with everything.
Yeah. So I think I can conclude this, Lian, like by talking to you for
Yeah.
like 40 minutes or something, and we are like to the end. I think what I can understand from your talk, and you really changed my perspective. So people think like DevOps is about Terraform, Helm charts, Go,
Mm,
Kubernetes, and etc. But these are the tools. I think DevOps is more
yeah.
about helping out and knowing these tools. To basically help the developers and like work collaboratively. So I guess like a good learner who can keep learning the tools, because this was my like this was in in my mind. Like we know that so many changes have been are been doing, like DevOps is leading towards so many tools are getting automated nowadays. Like whatever we do, whatever we used to do manually, now things are getting automated. So in anyways, I think tech stack keeps changing, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think if you are a good learner and you have these skills, collaborative skills, and you actually know that what exactly DevOps is for, then I think you're a good DevOps engineer and you know what this is what I could understand today.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I also like you had a question about like which career path should I choose or how should I go
Yeah.
about like getting into it. And I would want to say to that I you can you can like create a plan for yourself, but you shouldn't be too fixated on like I want to become this person or this
Yeah.
role, and then just like this is the perfect path to get there, because I had so many pivots in my career. I just started
Mhm.
out in engineering just because it was kind of the easiest thing for me to do. I don't have a burning passion for any technology. I like Kubernetes, but it's not like, I don't lie awake at night thinking about how awesome it is. And there was a time when I thought I wanted to go into machine learning, and I worked in that area for like a year, and then it wasn't what I thought it would be. And then I did like consulting because I wanted to go away from product and just try like seeing a lot of different products and just like jumping around a lot. And then I
Mhm.
realized, oh, actually, I want to go back to a product company because I want to really stay with one product. So like this is the luxury of our industry, is that there's so much out there, and it's fairly not easy. It's fairly simple to switch from front end to back end to DevOps. So
Mhm.
you can set yourself some goals, but don't be too like stuck on your plan,
Yeah.
and just give yourself some space to explore. And maybe you'll find out DevOps is just not for me, and that's totally okay. Like you should definitely just do what feels right for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect because I'm doing the same. I'm exploring because I also have like a lot of pivots. So totally agree with you. I mean, keep exploring, and we should not be so rigid about anything. Yeah, yeah. I think that's all, and I really loved it. And thank you so much, Lian. Like by talking to you, yeah, I could like I have a new perspective about DevOps in general, or any engineering role in general now. So that's super helpful. Yeah, and that's all. Do you have
I'm glad.
something else to add, Lian? Yeah.
I wanna. What do the only thing I have is that you should always reach out for help if you need help. Like you can always reach out to me. Obviously, I might not always answer immediately, but I feel like the best thing about DevOps, generally, the industry, is the community, and
Yeah.
it looks very daunting from the outside sometimes because people are close. As I said, we worked together for a long time, and it's nice when we see each other again. We're like buddies, and it can seem like it's hard to get into that in group. And I'm saying is that don't be afraid. Like just speak to people, maybe on Twitter if you're not comfortable speaking to them in person, and just ask for help, but also offer something. Like don't just for people to do something for you, but also like offer something to them.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. Well, yeah. Also, I think this is one of the last question, Leanne. Like, so there are
Yeah.
so many resource materials outside, and when someone has to learn any skill, it could be related to anything. It could be maybe in the job as a engineer, they need to learn about Terraform or something. So, what's your part? Because like people do talk about roadmap. I mean, I've seen a lot of roadmaps on Twitter, like DevOps roadmap, backend roadmap. So, what do you suggest? Do you have any suggestion? I would love to paste link maybe later. Yeah.
Did you want a suggestion for me to where DevOps is going?
Yeah, no, no. I mean, if someone wants to learn about DevOps, or they want to have like
Oh,
roadmap, like the skills which is going to help them in the job. So
yes.
would you recommend any? like any resources or anything?
I have not been doing a lot of
Okay.
like getting into. But however, I will say that my very, very good friend James Spurren, he has a bunch of videos where he dives into a bunch of tools and everything and Docker, and he's just great and he has a lot of great content. So I definitely recommend that. It's called Dive Into. So
Okay.
diveinto.com. And then obviously Kunal has a bunch of great content. I feel like everyone knows Kunal. So you probably know, or you maybe have his link or something. I don't know. I don't have it, and I can't type anything, so I can't share it, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, the easiest way, like I think YouTube is great, great. You know,
Yeah.
has a lot of great, especially beginner content. I mean, I can think of some, and I can make a list on Twitter, for example, and then
Yeah.
if you go into my Twitter, which I'm going to put that in the private chat so you can share it. I can create a list of content that it's content from people that I know. So I know that they're trustworthy and I know that they're good communicators. I've not done any of
Yeah.
those myself, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, that's going to be super awesome and super helpful. So we are going to, like, after this stream, we're going to retweet it and share it with folks. So yeah, I mean, that's all. Thank you so much, Lian. Today I learned a lot personally.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
yeah, yeah.
It
So
was great
Kelvin,
to it was great to be here. Thanks for the
yeah, thank you so
platform.
much, Lian. And I think if anyone else has any questions, so you can always reach out to Lian on Twitter. I've already, it's
Twitter,
there.
LinkedIn.
There.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
maybe if you want to come, you can also come to the Discord, which is, yeah, so you can also come to the Discord. You can, that's the Twitter handle for Women in Cloud Native. That's the website. So if you have any questions, Lian is also there. So you can ask
Yes.
there. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Lian. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a great
Yeah.
time. Bye.